Are you sick and tired of the state and the central banks trying to destroy every aspect of your life? Are you
Welcome everybody to the Journey to Wealth podcast. I'm your host Jacqueline, and today I'm excited to announce that we have a very special guest. Many of you may know him as the Dollar Vigilante or have heard his podcast, The Anarchast. And if you haven't heard of him, no worries. It is my hope that today you will walk away with some valuable insights and just enjoy this podcast. So with that in mind, it is my pleasure to introduce Jeff Berwick.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
You're
Pleasure.
welcome. So Jeff, I want you to start off by sharing your journey and why you decided to help people and why you created the Dollar Vigilante and the Anarchast podcast.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we're all sort of born with a gift or talent to help others. I think that's driven out of us by the government schools beginning, and even things like circumcision right off the bat. I was mutilated barbarically. This is all done on purpose to drive the humanity out of us. Then, of course, you turn on your television programming at night, and it's all propaganda. This is all made to dehumanize us. I think we're all meant for a purpose, and the purpose is, in one way or another, to help others. And most people forget that. And, you know, I'm an anarcho-capitalist, and a lot of people don't understand that word, but anarcho just means freedom, and capitalist just means free markets. And what we know about anarcho-capitalism or true free markets is it helps the most people possible. In fact, every single transaction ever made, if there's no government coercion involved, both sides benefit from it. Otherwise, they would not enter into that transaction. So when you go to get a haircut, which I just did yesterday,
Nice.
and I gave them, what did I give them? 200 pesos, about $10. I was very happy to have this haircut, and he was very happy to have that $10. We both benefited. So I think what I found, though, is after being in the business world for quite a while and doing lots of stuff and helping people through doing business, offering them things they wanted in exchange for money, essentially, that I wasn't fully doing something that I was truly passionate about. And I became passionate about freedom, libertarianism, Austrian economics, all the related sort of things around 2002. And I actually went and I traveled the world for about 6 years after that, just trying to see what was going on, because I knew what we were being told in the television programming and the mainstream media, the fake news, as even Donald Trump calls it, is not correct. It's just totally propaganda. So I wanted to see it with my own eyes. I tried to sail the world. I sank my sailboat in El Salvador 1 year after buying it, and then I went to about 100 other countries by backpack, and not just backpack, but train, plane, automobile with a backpack. And really saw the world, and I was like, okay, I understand what's going on here. I see what the problem is, because I was always wondering, even from a young age. I even got involved, I have to embarrass to say, I got involved in the political process when I was about 14 years old, because I said, what's going on with all these wars and all this poverty? This shouldn't be here. I signed up for the Conservative Party in Canada, and within about a month, I was like, this isn't the answer. This is horrible. I'm like, I don't know what the answer is, but this is not the answer. So I was so happy around 2002 when I finally understood what the answer was, and the answer was to get rid of governments and central banks, not violently, by the way, but to make them obsolete and to help people to become consciously aware of what is actually hurting them and what isn't hurting them. And so after I was done traveling around 2008, I decided, okay, it's time for me to, do something I'm really passionate about. And I started the Dollar Vigilante, which at the time was very extreme. I called it an anarcho-capitalist newsletter, financial newsletter based in Austrian economics. And even my partner, who's still my partner to this day, Ed Bugos, he said, you can't tell people we're anarchists. And I was like, why? And he's like, that's extreme. Like, they're going to think we're like bomb-throwing crazy people. I was like, no, we have to change that word. So we started up the Dollar Vigilante, and it went very well. Not right from the get-go, but like within a few years, it was doing very well. And it was right around then, around 2011. I said, okay, I want to really actually do a podcast that focuses on freedom, and I called it Anarchast, and to this day it's still the world's largest libertarian anarcho-capitalist voluntarist podcast. And I've been doing both of those things ever since to try to help people to wake up to what is really hurting them, because that's the main issue is people don't know. They're very confused. They don't get this information from the schools on purpose. They don't get this information on television on purpose. So luckily and thankfully we have the internet now, so I'm trying to get this information out through the channels that we do have, and before they shut those down as well, because fascist book, FBI book, Facebook, I guess they call it, and Google and all these things are trying to shut down this freedom of information that we've had with the internet for a number of years. So I'm trying to get this information out as much as possible before they can try to shut it down.
That's incredible, Jeff. But I think that with the help of the blockchain, we'll be able to circumnavigate this. I know you have been posting your content onto Steemit. So by doing that, from my understanding, it will always live on the blockchain unless you personally delete it. So that's good in terms of you can't get censored in that way, and it's just always living there. So what's your take on this?
Yeah, blockchain definitely is a huge step, like the first big step for humanity towards an awakening. The hippies even call it the age of Aquarius. The Christians call it revelation. This is all happening right now, in my opinion. It's an awakening. Revelation, I believe, means lifting of the veil. So it's an awakening. It's people realizing what's happening and what's been happening. We're seeing that all over the place now with all this stuff coming out about all these sexual predators, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's like nothing compared to what's really going on. You want to find the real pedophiles, go to Buckingham Palace, go to Vatican City, go to those places, which a lot of people think are the good people, right? They're very good. They've got a good PR agency, and they've lied to people for so long. But yeah, the blockchain is the second wave after the internet. So the internet came out, and now we have it sort of like it was the best thing since the Gutenberg press, because before the Gutenberg press, to find out anything, you basically had to talk to the older people in your community, which actually is not a bad idea to do anyway, but they would only know what they've kind of known or seen around that area, and most people wouldn't even have left that area, a 10-mile square area, their entire lives, and so you had very limited access to information. Once the Gutenberg press came out, now all of a sudden you could get your information out to a lot of people, especially if you had some money, because it took money to print the books, it took money to get them out there and all that kind of stuff, but you at least had the opportunity to get that information out, and that really caused a revolution, or evolution as I call it, because we're not going back anywhere each of these times. Then the internet came out, and that's like bam. As soon as I saw that, I was like, this is going to change everything. It's two-way communication. We can now talk to anyone in the world. We can access all information. Now, of course, a lot of the information on the internet's wrong, but at least we have access to all of the information, so we can ourselves decipher what is actually going on or not. And then now they've learned, the controllers, the people control the world, people who want to keep people enslaved, they have learned, okay, we're going to start censoring the internet. We've heard Donald Trump say we should turn off the internet. Theresa May, the Prime Minister of the UK, says after every false flag hoax attack in London, she goes, we have to turn off the internet. We've heard Bill Clinton even say, like 5-10 years ago, we really need to censor this internet. They're doing it now. They're quite slow. That's one good thing. But they are doing that now. So now blockchain is the next step. As you pointed out, even something like Steemit, which is a social media based on a blockchain. If you post something on Twitter now, first of all, you can get blocked very easily. We've seen anyone who's sort of saying the truth is just getting blocked. Of course, ISIS is still on Twitter, but ISIS, of course, is the CIA, as we all know. But they've learned how to shut down a lot of things on the main sort of stuff. So now we have something like Steemit. Once you post something on there, it's there. No one can remove it. That's because of the blockchain. So this is very, very important, and that's just the very beginning. As we see the decentralization of things and the uncensorship of things, and something like Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash or things like that are sort of uncensorable money, and money is one of the most important things. So yes, this is an absolute evolution. This is absolutely massive, and a lot of people will say, yeah, that's amazing. I wish I bought Bitcoin like 5 years ago and it was like $200. Well, I recommended it at $3 in 2011, but they say, well, it's $7,000 now. Wow, that's that's the big deal about Bitcoin. That's nothing. That's not the big deal. This is nothing. This is the importance is getting the money decentralized, because all of the crimes in recent history, at least in the last 100, 200 years, have all been essentially made possible. All the major crimes, I'm talking the wars, I'm not talking about some guy with a gun who robs a 7-Eleven store, but like all the major massive crimes have been based and backed on central banking. So if we can take that power of money away from them, which we are with the blockchain, with things like Bitcoin, then that's huge. And then if we can take away the social media censorship through things like Steam and many others that are coming out now, and then the next big thing will be the actual decentralization and blockchaining of the internet itself, which many people are working on. So we are in incredible times. Most people don't even realize what's going on. I know you do, Jacqueline. I've been watching you and what you do. You realize what's going on, but your average person does not.
Another thing is that, I mean, these cryptocurrencies were created to take away that power from the central banks and the government so that we could be in control of our wealth again. So going on that, one of the things that I notice is for people that are new into the space, one of the things that kind of scares them away is whenever they look at the price. And whenever I talk to people, they're always under the assumption that they have to buy like a whole Bitcoin or a whole Ethereum or something. And what they don't understand is the fact that they can buy fractions of the coin, which are called Satoshis. So I think that there's a lot of information that the general public still needs to know, and you're doing a really good job informing them. So what do you think about this?
You bring up a good point with, I've seen that so many times, and it's sad to see, but you'll see someone post on YouTube on one of my Bitcoin videos, well, it's $7,000. I don't have $7,000, so I can't get involved in this evolution. It's like, as you pointed out, it's down to the 8th decimal, so literally like less than a penny of Bitcoin you could buy if you want. Of course, there's some issues with Bitcoin right now, and we can get into that or not. But yeah, but the reason that people don't understand all this is because, first of all, they've been put into 12 years of government indoctrination camps where they were not told how to think, how to learn. They were told how to memorize, and they were never told how the money system works. And it was Henry Ford who said in the early 20th century, if people understood how the monetary and financial system worked, there'd be a revolution tomorrow. And there really would be, because if people really understood what it was, it's a Ponzi scheme that's meant to impoverish not just the 99%, when people talk a lot about this 1%, it's meant to impoverish the 99.9999% of people for the benefit of 0.00001% of people. Right. That's the only thing it does. There's nothing good about central banking. In fact, for anyone out there who doesn't like communism, that's a tenet of communism. It's central planning of money, and it's absolutely ridiculous. Ron Paul said the 20th century, it's no coincidence that the century of total war was also the century of central banking. You can't have these wars, which are almost all banker wars, almost all done on false flags, to kill tens or hundreds of millions of people, to profit the very small percent of people and impoverish all the rest. This is the system they live in, so that's why we need to move this to a decentralized system that they can't control, that they can't stop, and in many ways they can't stop this blockchain revolution unless they turn off the power or the internet, and those are both quite difficult to do.
Right.
So yeah, we are in interesting times right now.
Right, you're totally right. And one of the things that people need to understand is the fact that these major players are actually funding both sides of the war, so they end up winning anyways, and we, the people, end up getting screwed because we go being indoctrinated and everything, thinking that we're going to go set people free and it's for liberty, and we end up killing hundreds of thousands, even millions of innocent people, and that's not the way to go. So I think at least now people are waking up to the fact that they don't want to be a part of these wars, and with the help of technology and the internet, people are becoming more informed and moving towards more embracing peace. So I think this technology brings a lot of good things, but I think we need to be able to use it in the correct way, because we don't want to end up in a worse situation than we have been in. So this is what is great. about the blockchain as well is that we'll be able to decentralize everything. But one of my concerns is the fact that with this new technology, we don't want people to fall prey to, for example, the other day I was watching this video and it was the ex-head of DARPA, and she was talking about implanting chips, and this has been something that has been going on for a while with the RFID chips and whatnot, but she was talking about implanting chips in the brain and basically having these chips read our thoughts and then we can instantly convert them into text and stuff. But that kind of violates the freedom of privacy of your thoughts as well, is my perspective. And then going on that, we have Elon Musk, who is, people see him as this revolutionary icon and whatnot, who's talking about us fusing ourselves with artificial intelligence to evolve past what we are capable of doing now. So these things are really important for people to keep in mind, and just to be aware that these things can be used for good and bad.
So people need to be a little bit more cautious of these things. So what is your take on this?
Oh, absolutely. The thing is, it's difficult to be just cautious because they are going to move ahead with all of those things, whether we like it or not. I guess one way to be cautious would be to not use things like Fascist Book or Facebook, not to use things like your smartphone and things like that. But to me, we also, as you pointed out, there's two sides to everything. They are using it for what I would call evil intentions. They want to destroy humanity, make us all slaves, and control everything. But we also can use that exact same technology to do the exact opposite and to free everyone. And that's what the whole blockchain evolution is about, because it's not so much about being cautious or hoping they don't do it. It's about creating new systems that make it so they can't do their system. So it's making new systems to make their systems obsolete. That's really the war that's going on. It's actually a great war because no one's really dying, except for a few people that Hillary Clinton kills or whoever. But a few people do get killed, but not many, not like the old wars. So this is actually a war of the mind right now that's going on, and it's a race to see which side is going to take most advantage of technology, because you can't stop technology. It's not, something that you can just stop. Once it's there, it's there. Mm-hmm. And it's how you use it, as you pointed out. And so they're going to use it for their means, and their means are all top-down, centrally controlled pyramid. That's why they always have pyramids. If you look on the back of the $1 bill, there's a pyramid with an all-seeing eye. Mm-hmm. If you draw a pentagram on it, it spells Mason. They put it all in plain sight. This is actually one of the things that they have to do because they actually do understand natural law and how everything works. And you actually have to tell people what you're going to do, and you have to actually get their consent as well. That's what things like the vampire movies and all that stuff's all about. There's vampires out there, but unless you actually allow them to come into your house, they can't come into your house because that's your area. And they're the same way. So they need to sell this stuff to people. So that's why they're constantly working with their mainstream media, propaganda, all these sort of things, saying it's all good we're doing this. It's good. It's good. You'll have a chip in your head and you'll be able to buy things easier. It's like, well, no, because what they're going to do is track every single thing you do, tax everything you do. Mm-hmm. And if you ever speak out against the system, they'll turn off your chip and you won't be able to do anything in this world except for sit in the forest and meditate, which actually isn't a bad idea. A lot more people should do that. The other side of it is if we can use the technology to free people, we will have a world of peace and prosperity. It'll literally be heaven on earth. And that's what it's coming down to. It's literally heaven and hell is going to happen here on earth, heaven or hell. Right now we're more in hell at the moment, but we have an opportunity to move towards heaven here on earth with this technology. So that's why these things are so important. That's why I don't even like talking too much about all the gains we're making on this or that, because it's not about money. This is about freedom. This is about the future of humanity.
Well, I think the money is associated with like this power thing. But what people need to understand is that money is a tool and it can be used for either good or evil. It just really depends on where you are spiritually. So going beyond this is if you're operating at low frequencies, you're only going to draw like negative things to you. But if you're operating at a higher frequency, then you can protect yourself from these bad energies and basically see through the veil of bullshit and find the correct path to go. This is really important, especially because we all get to a point where we can acquire tunnel vision, and this is very dangerous. It's very important for us not to just surround ourselves with people that we have the same thoughts and values of, because we won't really learn much this way. And it could be very, very dangerous. We need to be able to be accepting of other people having the freedom to express themselves, and always learn something from another opposing opinion. You don't have to agree with it, but it doesn't mean that you can't learn something from that. So, I mean, we all have this experience where life goes up and down in waves, and we won't really be able to experience all of the positive aspects of life. We also have to experience negativity. It's just a cycle of waves. So what do you think?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, if everything was always good, then we wouldn't even know what bad was. So I think the life experience, and we can get into what life is. I don't know exactly, but I've noticed that it seems to be that way, that we have to have these good and bad experiences. We need the good guys and the bad guys. So even like the people that, you know, that are trying to control everyone, we kind of they're part of the game, really. It might be a big 3D video game as far as I know, but they're part of, like, they're necessary because we need this constant struggle of back and forth in order to enjoy this life experience. And you brought up money. It says in the Bible, well, it's funny because a lot of people think it says in the Bible, money is the root of all evil, but they haven't actually, they cut off part of the sentence. It says the love of money is the root of all evil. So therefore greed. Yeah, greed is obviously a big part of what a lot of the bad stuff that happens in this world, but it's definitely not money. And so a lot of people get really confused. And there's a lot of stuff out there just to confuse people, as you pointed out. So you really, as you pointed out as well, very rightly, you need to get yourself to a higher frequency so you can figure out what's actually going on, because we're just getting bombarded by information constantly now, especially in this internet age. And if you don't have yourself at the right frequency, you will be stuck in the muck and you won't be able to see above it all. So yeah, there's so many things going on. It's really amazing that most people just have no idea what's going on. They just think, you know, turn on their TV, oh, well, there's a hockey game tonight, which actually I'll be watching the hockey game tonight. I enjoy hockey, but I know that's not very important. I know there's a lot more things more important going on, and most people don't. But I think that's just the way it is. Most people will stay asleep. So that's why we need to create systems that even the asleep people will just prefer to use, other than the systems that the bad people are doing. So, for example, even things like Uber. Uber isn't a voluntarist anarchist sort of a thing, but it is a capitalist thing, and it has created a system that is way better than government taxi systems. Anyone who's taken an Uber probably knows this. And so you just have your average person saying, yeah, I'm not taking government taxis anymore, I'm going to take Uber. If you talk to them about the philosophy of why government taxis are probably worse, because it's not a free market, and because if it's not free, if it's communist style central planning, there's no incentive to improve and all that sort of stuff, they have no idea about that. They just know Uber's better. So we just need to create more and more things like Uber, and that's things like Bitcoin. Hopefully we can keep Bitcoin going quite well. If not, we'll go to other things like Bitcoin Cash or whatever. There's a takeover attempt of Bitcoin going on right now. Like, this is a never-ending struggle. But if we can get people to the point where they're like, yeah, I just prefer to use this money. It's called Bitcoin. I don't really know what it is, but I prefer it. It's faster, it's cheaper. That's the way it should be anyway. They don't need to understand the real importance of it is that they will have more freedom. We will have a much better world. There'll be less wars. There'll be less poverty because central banking will go down or even be made obsolete. They don't understand any of that. So we need to make all these things just easy to use and preferable to your average person who just will never really think about these things on this level.
Right. You bring a lot of good points up, and one of the things that I notice in the space right now, in the cryptocurrency space, is there's a lot of bickering going on, and maybe it's just because we haven't really been able to get past this as humanity. But right now there's this big dramatic issue between the Bitcoin Core community and the Bitcoin Cash community, and they're just constantly trying to bring each other down. And I don't think that's the most productive way to go about things. Although, I mean, it does bring about more competition, but there's better ways to go about it. And I think as a community, we should be helping each other as a whole, because there's a bigger picture here, and that is to step away from these systems that have been corrupt and are obsolete, really. And we want to transition people into this space. And I think it's important to inform people that whenever new people come into this space, it's not good for them to see all of this bickering with each other when both technologies are good. It's just one may end up being better than the other. Who knows? I mean, this is how technology works. There's always advancements, there's always improvements, and there's always competition. Something could come along that is better and that people enjoy. So it's just like the consensus of the majority of humanity have to come together and agree, well, this is what we're going to use as opposed to this. But both of them are good. And I want to get your opinion on all of this fighting that's going on.
Well, I agree in general. Like, the world would be a much better place if we weren't all fighting each other all the time. That's obvious. But, Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency space is still very new. Just started in 2009, so it's just 8 years old. It's a nascent, rising technology that's changing all the time. It's all based in the free market, so you're definitely going to have some struggles. I don't mind, actually, these battles when you have people just battling it out. The thing I don't like is the censorship. So you go on things like Reddit, Bitcoin, and they won't let you talk about anything but Bitcoin Core. That's not good. We need total communication. Now, of course, when you go outside of our little world where we all care about this stuff, and you go to your average person, yeah, it's not good for them to see this, but it's going to happen either way, unfortunately. There's always going to be that sort of a thing. But we need to just get out there with more information and be what you said, and be more loving, be more kind, do things. And that's why I really like your shows and stuff, because I think you bring a different angle to it. You're a beautiful young girl, and you're smart. And so a lot of people will just want to watch that. You're just average person might just see you and go, oh, what's she saying? And then they'll start listening, and oh, I'd never thought about that. And she seems really nice. And, we just need more and more people doing all that kind of stuff, getting that information out there. It's never going to be easy. There's always going to be some sort of struggle involved, at least until we get to the very end of whatever is going on. But until that point, because really the sort of the bad guys, in my opinion, they have so much power, and you brought up money and power. They've got trillions and trillions of dollars that they siphon off from the tax slaves that go into all these black ops. They have things everywhere. They have so much money, so they can buy internet trolls. They can create chaos wherever they want, really. Mm-hmm. And until people wake up to what's really going on, they're just going to continue to do that. And there's not much we can do about it, really, except for always rise above it, always be the kinder one, always be the gentler one, and then hope that people gravitate towards our side in some ways, just because they're like, yeah, those guys are kind of dicks and you guys are kind of nice, right? Mm-hmm. But none of the stuff's easy. But I'm not surprised to see that there's a lot of back and forth and a lot of fighting going on in the community, because it's such an important issue. And I've met people on both sides of Bitcoin Core and things like Bitcoin Cash. And I've met people on both sides who are very passionate. I think they're doing it for the right reasons. And I'm not sure exactly what's right either. But some people are kind of losing track of the bigger picture a little bit, in my opinion. So we have this thing with Bitcoin right now where it's costs a lot of money to use, and it's not very fast. Recently, it's been like a day to transfer Bitcoin, and It'll be like a $5 or $10 or $15 charge. That's not what we need Bitcoin to be if it's going to make central banks obsolete. Mm-hmm. So the people who are okay with that have a different vision for whatever reason. Now, it could be, I've heard sort of good sort of visions on it. I've heard that, yeah, it's not scalable enough, so we have to do this. Okay, maybe. But I also know there is some nefarious people who are working to try to destroy Bitcoin. I don't know at what level they're doing that, but they're trying to make it slow and expensive so it doesn't catch on. So, of course, we're going to have a struggle here, of course, and it's, you know, it's unfortunate, just part of what's going on. There's always going to be things like that, but hopefully in the end everything sort of works itself out, and I think it will. We might have to branch off from, if Bitcoin just becomes too slow and too expensive, it's obviously not going to destroy central banks that way. Right. So we need something that will, and of course that could be Bitcoin Cash, it could be Litecoin, it could be Dash. It could be Monero. So there's a number. This is the free market. It's actually beautiful in many ways, but just like anything, the free market is not nice and easy and relaxed and without problems. The free market always has issues, but I much prefer it to some sort of big government boot stomping on your face forever. That's for sure.
No, I think that's totally right. So you bring up a lot of good points in that in order for these technologies to succeed, they do need to be mass adopted and accepted by the majority of people. So I agree that the competition is good. Competition is always good in free markets. This is how we get innovation. The thing that isn't good for free markets is the manipulation that goes on by governments and central banks and even corporations. One of the things that I am concerned about, because we do see a lot of like corporations and governments starting to use the blockchain and even wanting to create their own currencies, like peg their own fiats to the currencies, is that they regulate the space so much, or they ban things in this space, and then they take control of the technology, and then the people, because they're not informed very well, they blindly accept the technology that the government gives them, and then they end up not breaking free, which was what this technology was intended for in the beginning. So I think that this is a very important thing for people to understand is you need to be cautious of what the government is telling you and handing to you. And we need to be able to rise above all of their lies and all of the corruption that they've created. So what do you think about all of this?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why spreading information is also just as important, and spreading what you just said, and having shows like yours and shows like mine where I talk about these sort of things. So getting that information out there, because people don't realize what's going on. And if we can get them to wake up a little bit, it will actually change a lot of things. And we are seeing people wake up. This is definitely happening very fast. I remember 10 years ago, like I said, you mentioned the word anarchy or something like that, and people thought you're crazy. Now people kind of understand. Like, people are waking up. They're like, yeah. And I talked to a lot of people. I just got off a radio show with a guy who said he went to Berkeley, and he agreed with so many of my things on economics and stuff. He actually understood economics, but he wanted to talk about universal health care and all this stuff. Within 10 minutes, I had him pretty much understanding why it's wrong, why it won't work, why it's not good, why it's not going to help people the way the free market would. So we just have to get out there and get this information out there. And as we do that, and it is happening, we are seeing it happening, that after a certain point, it'll reach a sort of a tipping point. But I think we're still a few years away from that still. But we just got to keep working on that and keep spreading this information and keep creating systems that make the old centralized systems obsolete, which is going on constantly now.
Right. That's very insightful. So thank you for that. So moving on, if you can share one of the most important lessons that you've learned so far on this journey, what would that be?
Yeah. All right. Very insightful. I really love that. So if you can share one of the top lessons that you've learned from all of the work that you've done, what would it be?
I think that one of the definite lessons I've learned is when I first started doing these things around 2010, if you watch my first episodes of Anarchast, it was very kind of angry. It was very kind of like the government's horrible, but we weren't talking a lot about solutions too much. It was more like this kind of like unhappiness sort of place. What I've learned is, and I've learned this just in the last few years, is I was trying to change the world for many years, but it actually, I realized you have to change yourself. And when you change yourself, then the world actually changes around you. And I don't know why that is. I don't understand all the mechanics of how the universe works and all that sort of stuff, but I've noticed it myself. So about 2 years ago, I realized, I've been bashing my head against the wall trying to change the world. I'm getting frustrated. I'm getting stressed out. I'm getting depressed. Once I started meditating, yoga, did some psychedelics to get outside of my headspace a little bit, nutrition, health, exercise, taking care of my physical body, my mental health, my working to becoming more spiritual, more conscious, all of a sudden everything around me just started changing. And I don't know what that is. Maybe we create our own reality. Maybe it's all energy. We're all connected. This is all agreed upon, even amongst science people. We're all connected. So if we change our energy, all of a sudden everything around us starts to change. We really do in many ways create our own reality. So one of the lessons, I guess, main lessons that I've learned is, if you want to change the world, you really just have to change yourself. It's that Gandhi quote. It's be the change you want to see in the world. And I didn't understand it until about 2 years ago. So that's been one of the biggest lessons I've learned.
That's amazing. And that's something that I've recently started doing as well. And you're totally right. Once you start changing yourself, then you're
conscious. All of a sudden, everything around me just started changing. And I don't know what that is. Maybe we create our own reality. Maybe it's all energy. We're all connected. This is all agreed upon, even amongst science people. We're all connected. So if we change our energy, all of a sudden, everything around us starts to change. We really do, in many ways, create our own reality. So one of the lessons, I guess, main lesson, exercise, taking care of my physical body, my mental health, my working to becoming more spiritual, more conscious, all of a sudden everything around me just started changing. And I don't know what that is. Maybe we